Welcome into Training Camp Report presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith, back again for another day. These are, as we've talked about before, the dog days of camp, where I have no idea what day of the week it is. I don't know how many practices we've had. I don't know what's going on. Thankfully, the team knows more.
They're going to be working for another 2.5 hours.
They're going to be out there working again. And the good news is, especially, it is game week. We talked about that last week, that it is just so nice when you get to the part of camp when there is a game that week to look forward to. You know that you'll finally get to hit someone other than your teammate. And, yeah, you can tell guys are in a good mood, even though it is insanely hot. Look at this. I love this. After practice, we get kids out here in autograph line. Hainsey took a kid's photo, which I loved. Good guy, Hainsey, for the win. So, yeah, guys are in a great mood. Camp has been going well, and we actually had our first roster move of camp. That's normally a thing that happens a few more times.
I'm pretty sure. I haven't gone to the lengths of looking it up, but I've been to more than 30 of these. And I'm pretty sure that's the first time we've made it 13 days into camp without making a roster move, which is good news. That means you like who you got, and not a lot of guys are getting hurt. But the Bucs did make a move. They signed a cornerback named Avery Young. And when I heard safety, when I heard the name, I'm like, boy, that sounds familiar. We actually had a guard here about 5 years ago named Avery Young.
Oh.
But this is a different Avery Young. He's actually the brother of Jordan Young, who was a linebacker we had in training camp last year. But this Avery Young is another defensive back from Rutgers, like Christian Ezien. He actually signed as an undrafted free agent with the 49ers in May, but they let him go last week, so the Bucs picked him up. And to make room on the 90-man roster, the team waived first-year tackle Grant Hermans. So there you go, first roster move.
First roster move.
Thrilling stuff.
There it is. Thrilling stuff. This is what we're here for. All right, so probably the thing that people are actually here for is an update on the quarterback competition. That's probably people are here every day.
Do we have one of those?
Well, I figured we'd at least talk about the fact that, we got to hear from Kyle Trask, and he talked about the idea that turnovers are obviously something that we talk about for all quarterbacks in terms of a huge indicator of success and what you want to be doing, but that camp is kind of a hard time to really tell a whole lot about what some interceptions mean and what you're going for. And so as we watch these guys, I know Kyle Trask talked about what he's been trying to learn from that. What did you gather from him?
Well, like guys almost always say when they're in a competition like that, I can only control what I can control, and I'm not going to worry about what I can't control. But Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield are out there trying to succeed without throwing interceptions, because that's maybe the number one thing on the checklist for them. And that's not as easy to control as it sounds, because there's a lot of really good defenders on the other side, and there's a lot of good coaches disguising coverages and pre-snap disguises, and so it's not easy. So the fact that Kyle has had only a couple interceptions in the first couple weeks of training camp is actually a nice indicator of how he's doing out there. And you can't just not throw the ball, right?
Right.
Quarterback's job is to throw the ball. So he has to put the ball out there in harm's way, but he's done it in a way that's minimized turnovers, which is pretty much job one for them if you listen to the coaches. So that's a good thing for Kyle.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a great sign. And, of course, more than anything, it's going to be what the games end up looking like when you are going against someone else.
It'll be different in the games.
Yeah, that practice is always a little bit different, that we love our, you talking about practice idea. It's a little different than the games. Thankfully, we have one of those coming up. But, we've seen that just it is so great to watch these guys battle. That they always talk about this idea of iron sharpening iron in practice, and that when you have these two quarterbacks battling it out, going back and forth, that competition always raises everything for everybody. That it just seems to elevate the urgency and the focus.
Coaches
and so
want competition at every spot if they can get it.
I think it's great. I think it's great to see these guys working on it. And speaking of the competition, we do have that kicker battle, and
we haven't talked about it a lot.
We've talked about it a little bit, and it is always nice when you get a chance to have a kicking period, and especially when both of them kick on the same day, and you really get that head-to-head idea where you can watch, and it is one of the easier positions for us to determine success.
The only hard part is when you're trying to figure out how far they're kicking, you kind of have to stand on the sideline. But it makes it harder to see, did it go through or not?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a two-man operation or two-person operation. Somebody standing back there by the upright seeing if it went in, and somebody else standing getting the yard line. So yesterday, Chase McLaughlin and Rodrigo Blankenship both kicked 4 field goal attempts from 22 yards out, 33, 49, and 53. Chase went first. He made all of his, which is great. Rodrigo went second. He made the first 3 and hit the 49er that should have been good from like 55. He did miss the 53-yarder, hitting it off the upright, but overall it was a pretty good period for those guys. Games are going to matter more, though.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. We've talked a lot about who they use at quarterback in what preseason games. It'll be interesting to see who they use as a kicker and how they switch that up to try to determine it.
I kind of think they signed Chase first and Rodrigo a month or two later, so my guess is Chase would get the first shot, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. All right, and then, we do have the game coming up, and so normally a typical game week, you'd be going into game prep, right? That it would be about actually game planning for your opponent and trying to do that. But we heard from Coach Bowles that may not be their strategy this week.
Yeah, that's not unusual, especially for the first preseason game. They are not really game planning, and I bet you the Steelers aren't either. They're not. A normal week could be, putting together a whole script and game planning and specifically working on things that you think will work against their offense, defense. They're not doing that. This is a normal training camp week of practice where they're continuing to install what they got and honing the plays and just working on some of these camp competitions and just basically business as usual, at least this week. And so when you get to the games, you generally have limited game scripts in the preseason anyway because you don't want to show a lot. So it's more continuing what they've been doing rather than game planning.
Well, and I think in some ways that'll be frustrating for us because, of course, everyone has really wanted to see what a Canales offense is going to look like, and it is definitely not going to be the full thing. As you said, you don't want to show everything. We might get an indicator, but it doesn't mean that whatever you see Friday night is the indicator.
But I am interested in particular to see the running game because we've talked about what it might look like. And, in fact, just a shameless plug here, Jeff Ryan and I did an interview, a rather lengthy one, with Dave Canales for our Salty Dogs podcast that's going to go up tomorrow, I believe. And, we talked about that running game and what does mid-zone mean? What does wide zone mean? We're throwing out the words, but do we understand what it is and what it's going to look like? I think some of us have a good grasp on it, but I'm still going to be interested to see some of these plays, how the linemen move, how the running backs move in terms of moving horizontally, then, sitting their foot and planting their foot in the ground and getting upfield real quickly. So whether or not it works really well, at least we'll get a better idea of what it looks like.
Okay.
And hopefully it will work.
Right, well. Absolutely. And I figured it'd be a good time to go over a bit of an injury update for a couple different guys on the team. So first of all, how about Kalijah Cansey? What do we know at this point?
Well, we saw him come out without the boot. He had a sort of a sleeve on his calf instead yesterday. And I even overheard a conversation between him and one of the trainers on the sideline, and he was very happy to get out of the boot. Still expected to be 3 weeks away. But when you think about that, that's about maybe August 28th. I don't know if there's a specific date. That's still almost 2 weeks before they actually have to play the first game. So he should have plenty of time to be ready for the first game as the way it's going now.
That's a great sign. And then we know that Ryan Jensen, I think it's been interesting because he did play in that last game of last season. I think a lot of people assumed that meant that he was
good to go all the way back.
All the way back, full go. But we've seen that that's not necessarily the case so far this training camp. He's been held out of some team drills or held out certain days, but he's been involved in other things. And so what do we know about, is there a timeline for him to be full go, and what is Coach Bowles
I wish
said?
there was, but it appears like they don't have a specific timeline yet. I don't think they have enough information to know exactly when he's going to start doing full team drills, and he obviously has to start doing those before he's going to play in games. So, Todd Bowles said yesterday that he's coming along fine, but they don't have a timetable. He said he's getting his info from the medical staff. So what they tell him to do is what they're going to do. He said Ryan has some really good days out here at camp and some days that aren't as good. So I think we're a bit away from knowing how that's going to go.
Okay, and then we also know today's practice is going to be a very fun one. That there's some things happening in this practice that haven't happened in all of the others, which is always fun after, 13 of them?
Yeah. I think, as you said, they're all probably really excited about getting to Friday and actually getting to hit somebody. Well, they're going to get to hit a little bit today. They're going to have, and this is typical of a training camp. You don't do this a lot, but every now and then you do a fully live drill, which means guys can tackle. Because even when they're wearing pads, they're supposed to thud each other, but not take them to the ground. This is going to be some short yardage plays, some goal line plays, and to really know how both sides are doing in those situations, you got to go fully live and tackle or break tackles.
Right.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's the very last period of practice, and they're also going to spend one period, probably a short one, practicing Hail Marys.
That's going to be so fun.
I mean, I guess you do have to practice those.
You do.
You don't really want to have to use them.
Yeah.
Because generally you're a desperate straight if you're throwing a Hail Mary, but you got to know what you want to do when you get into that situation because it will inevitably happen.
All right, well, we have more coming up here on Training Camp Report presented by Ticketmaster. For now, we're going to take a quick break. And while we do, you can take a look at part of my Bay episode where I went mini golfing with Jamel Dean. Welcome to another edition of The Bay. Casey Phillips here with Jamel Don't Make a Scene Dean, who I would now also like to call New Deal Dean.
New Deal Dean?
New Deal
I like the name.
Dean. You like it? You feel
it? I like it.
And because now we are all so excited you're going to continue to be here with us and continue to be in Florida, we felt like we'd bring you to the most Florida thing, which is putt-putt.
Putt-putt?
Yes, the
Trying to
Stealth
test my
Florida.
putting skills.
So how are you at this? Are you an expert?
No, I'm not an expert, but I just like to do different things.
Okay.
You know, to make myself feel good.
Yeah. Oh, so you're assuming you're going to win based on the fact that you're going to feel good?
Yeah.
Wow.
I trust my ability.
Already. I feel
To
like
an
the
extent.
trash talk has already begun. All right, well,
extent.
let's see if you can back it up.
Let's do it. So how do you even keep score?
So it's just like golf where you count the number of strokes on each hole.
Part 2, I get 2 tries.
Oh, we got the practice swing. He's so serious.
Gotta warm up.
Oh boy, we got the speed.
Oh my goodness. Too hard,
That
too hard,
was
too hard.
so close. That was wild. Is it fair to say you were a competitive person?
Sometimes.
Sometimes? Where would you rank on the team in competitiveness?
I'm up there in the broad patch.
You're up
You know,
there in
I'm up there in the
the
broad patch. Like if it's a friendly game, you know, I'm not too competitive.
Yeah.
But it just, I like to be able to like at least look good doing it. But you know, but competing wise, yes, I'm very competitive like during the season.
Yeah.
No way I missed this, right?
Why?
No way I missed this. We're too close.
That's a big game you're talking right now.
Oh. Oh.
I was about to say, putt-putt will humble you real quick.
I'm trying to tell you.
Putt-putt will humble you.
Oh.
Huh, just tap it. Welcome back into Training Camp Report presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. And as you can see, we just talked about before the break, Elijah Cansey without that boot on, always a good sight to see. Can't wait to see him getting back because there were definitely a lot of good things being said about him before he got injured. For now, let's talk a little bit about the inside linebackers. Again, every day we've been doing the show, we've been taking you through different position groups on the team, what the options are, the backups, the starters, who makes the team. Inside linebacker is one that I feel like for several years now in the Bucs is not the position group that everyone's watching the most in training camp because it's like, yep, Levante Devin. There you go. That's
set,
the
right?
group.
Yeah.
But this year it is cool to see some interesting new different faces in the backups and also just everything that Devin, we'll talk about this, what he talked about at his press conference, that he has been a really interesting story so far this offseason and said some really great things at that. So tell us just kind of overall your thoughts on what this inside linebacker group could look like and should look like this year.
Sure, and first of all, I apologize for my attention appearing to be divided. They're doing a kickoff return drill over there, and I was interested to see who was getting reps. I didn't see all of them because, of course, and Rakeem Jarrett, a rookie who's kind of had a nice little camp. So
yeah,
if we
that's
can
great.
add that to it, it'd be cool. As for the inside linebackers, Devin White did speak yesterday, and it's pretty clear that he is highly motivated to have maybe his best season ever. I'm sure he would love to have his best season ever every year, but he's talking about how he wants to improve his game. He's talking about how he wants him and Levante to rank among the best off-ball linebackers in the entire NFL, and in his eyes, that's Fred Warner of the 49ers and Roquan Smith of the Ravens, formerly of the Bears. And for him, part of that is improving in zone drops. That's coverage, so not man-to-man coverage, which is pretty obvious what you have to do. But when you're playing zone and the linebackers are dropping back into coverage, they have specific assignments, and he says he thinks he's doing better at that. He's getting his hands on more passes, and you know, we already know what a great blitzing linebacker he is. Maybe one of the best blitzing off-ball linebackers in the league. But man, if you can add really good coverage numbers to that, that would make him one of the better all-around linebackers, which is what he wants to be.
Absolutely, and we have a bit from his press conference from yesterday, so let's take a listen to that.
Yeah, as far as regret, I don't think it's no regret, and I don't think it's just about being paid. It's just about being a guy who was drafted here, you know, and doing a lot for this program. Just want to be the long-term guy, you know. Just want to be a guy like Levante. He been here forever. I wanted to be that next guy, and you know, we just didn't make it happen when I wanted it to, and that's where I kind of got a little selfish, you know, even knowing I still had the fifth-year option, and that was a thing in play. And I mean, I guess early on you don't realize it. You just know, like, hey, I'm at the end of my contract. You know, let's get it in, lock me in. I know I feel comfortable here. I love the coaching staff here. I love all, you know, the teammates, even the fans. You know, the ones that went against me or the ones still with me. You know, it's all love. But at the end of the day, you know, I thought that was best for me. You know, but at the end of the day, I'm still here, and I came back with a positive mindset, and I'm locked in. And I mean, y'all been watching practice. I've been getting it in. You know, I've been trying to be the leader for this team because we got a great bunch this year. You know, and I think we can get it done.
That was great to hear. A great press conference from Devin yesterday. If you have not seen the whole thing, make sure you check it out on Buccaneers.com. And we talked about he and Levante, I mean, two of the greats, and they want to be the best there's ever been, that we know that those are your starters. It's going to look pretty good out there. So tell me, outside of the two of them, what are you really interested in this group? How many do you think they keep?
Yeah.
What is that going to mean for this team, and how you end up coming to that decision?
I think that's the first question. How many do they keep? Now, all of last year, they only kept 4, and it was Levante and Devin, and then KJ Britt, who at the time was a second-year player. He was the main backup. And then the fourth guy really kind of cycled between Ulysses Gilbert, J.J. Russell, and a couple other guys. Those 2 guys are back again, but they really never kept 5 on the roster. And I could see them keeping 5. Obviously, it depends on what happens at some other positions. But if you have, like, a lot of these guys that were running as the 4th were really good special teams performers. So if you are intent on improving your special teams this year and getting more speed overall in that unit, you might keep a 5th linebacker, off-ball linebacker, if 2 or 3 of those guys are good special teams players. So one of them I would be willing to bet is going to be the rookie 5th rounder, Servassier Dennis, because he's had just a phenomenal camp both on defense and on special teams. So I think there's room for them to keep 5 guys possibly.
Yeah, I think Servassier provides a lot of value, even if he's not a starter. That he's a guy that, he played with Kalijah Cansey at Pitt. They have a great relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They're very tight, and I think that's a great thing to have, especially for your top rookie, that you bring in some of that familiarity, comfort zone idea of someone that they already know.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time with the rookies in the offseason at a lot of their programming that they do. And Servassier he just has such incredible leadership qualities, and he comes from a military family, and you can tell he takes that very seriously. He's very proud of that. And I've interviewed him, and I mean, that guy is as polished as can be as a rookie.
Wow.
That he's that guy that I feel like you're like, man, I already see what you could be in terms of a leader of a team, and a guy that has so much promise and future here. That, I think that even if he is not on the field, I think he's a guy that brings a lot to the locker room and to that position room.
Whenever they talk about guys like that early on, like Tristan Wirfs or last year with Devin Tompkins, a guy that is so mature and he's already wanting to be a leader, and he's has a very mature approach to the game, those guys always seem to work out.
Yeah, I
Don't
agree.
they?
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with one more segment here on Training Camp Report presented by Ticketmaster. And for now, take a look at another one of our episode of The Bay.
Oh yeah, this is sick.
Thank you.
Hello.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
Are you nervous to touch them at all or no?
I see them when I'm walking on Bayshore.
Oh yeah.
These things are huge.
They're huge.
What's up, big boy?
Ooh. Oh man, this is where your long arms are
I'm
gonna
scared.
come. You did. You pulled it up so quick. You went in real confident and then immediately
I didn't
regretted
want to
it.
like put my whole shoulder in the tank.
Yeah. You're
Come
gonna
over
be
here,
able to
boy.
get in.
Say what's up.
Oh.
Oh hell no. He's slimy.
What did you think it was gonna be? Did you have an idea of what
I
this
thought
was
it was
gonna
gonna
feel
feel like
like?
leather. I didn't like that, but I'll do it again. That's crazy. They have this at a baseball game.
Yeah.
Yo, he's huge.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yo, look at that.
Oh, heck, bro. I wonder how much he weighs.
Probably like nothing. Cool.
I wonder how fast they can swim.
I don't know.
They got the aerodynamics to them. They,
You gotta take some notes, pass rushing.
Yeah.
Can we start calling one of your
Right.
signature moves the Stingray? Is that it? When you slip right
yeah,
through?
Yeah,
the
that'd be actually
Stingray?
kind of dope.
Welcome back into Training Camp Report presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. And again, we are back for our final segment here of this practice that is going to be a lot of fun. We talked about that, but we also want to talk about what we're excited to see in this game on Friday. We only have one more of these shows before that game, so we thought we would talk a little bit about what we're excited to see specifically when it comes to the offense in that preseason game. So for you, what are the first things that stand out to you that you're looking forward to on Friday?
Well, we already talked, and so I won't cover it again, about what the running game might look like. One of the things is, how can some of these young receivers like Devin Tompkins or Rakeem Jarrett, can they keep this momentum going from the practice field into the games? Because to be honest with you, you can be all kinds of a star on the practice field, and it doesn't really matter if it doesn't translate into production during games, right? So can those guys continue that momentum and show that they could actually make a difference on game day will be one of the things I'm very interested in.
Yeah, and we can see there's highlights of these guys right now, and they are highlights. These guys are putting some fun
Well,
stuff. They're not just making a catch, they're making it look good.
And it's almost daily.
Yeah.
Usually, both of these guys, at least one of them will make some kind of big plays. Devin Tompkins seems to put in a highlight play every day.
It's crazy. And
In
he's
fact-
so fired up when he does it, too. I feel like he has a lot of energy.
Because those plays he's making are so thrilling. He's jumping so high in the air and twisting and landing on the ground and holding on to the ball. And yesterday, Kyle Trask was asked about him. He's like, I'm still wowed every time he does it, but it's kind of like he's doing it on the regular now.
Yeah.
He's like, he did that one the other day down the right sideline, and Kyle wasn't the one who threw the pass, so he was just watching. And he said, I watched that play, and then I realized that's just who he is. That's what he does.
Yep, I agree. All right, so another thing that I think we're excited to watch on Friday is this new look offensive line, especially because, now look, we'll get a bit of a view of it today in that fully live period,
Sure.
but talk about a group that it is so hard to tell during training camp how they're looking, that no one's really full go
Right.
when it comes to that. And so I think both in the live period today and in the game Friday, really excited to see how this group looks.
Well, what they did was they decided on what they think their plan is for the starting five really early in the offseason. And so because they know that's a position more than any other where the guys all have to gel together. They're only as strong as the weakest link there. Just one guy messing up a play probably blows up the play, right? So how much chemistry have these guys developed? And of course, we still have the issue at center with Ryan Jensen not practicing fully, and so it's been Robert Hainsey and Nick Leverett kind of in and out there. But other than that, what's the chemistry like with those guys, especially considering Tristan's playing on the other side? The left guard next to him is new to the team. The right guard is a rookie, Cody Mauk. So there's a lot of changes there, and I'd like to see, if they've gelled at this point.
Yeah, and then another one is the tight end group and how this offense is going to use them. What are some of these different packages, and again, this is a group that is so young. Your elder statesman is Cade Otton in his second year, Keeft in his second year. So what do you think that they're going to look like, how they get used, and just what you hope to see out of this young group?
Well, we've talked about this, and I mentioned that we talked, Jeff Ryan and I, the Salty Dogs, talked to Dave Canales last night, and I asked him, because I don't want to make any assumptions. You say, okay, this guy comes from Seattle, so let's look at Seattle's numbers. Are we going to do exactly that? But a lot of it you can glean from what they did, and part of that was they ran 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends on the field, on almost 30% of their plays last year in Seattle, which is almost double what the Buccaneers did last year. So that's a big change. But my question is, what are those 12 packages going to be? Is it going to be Cade Otton and Keeft, or is it going to be Cade Otton and the rookie Payne Durham, where both guys are maybe more pass receiving threats? Or David Wells has looked really good. Is he going to factor in it? So it's not how much 12 personnel we use, it's which combinations of guys that I'm interested to see.
That'll be interesting. And then, of course, we'll close with this. The thing everybody's excited to watch.
I have no idea what you're
I know,
talking
what
about.
could this possibly be? The quarterbacks, what they are going to look like in these preseason games, how they're going to play them, who gets to play behind starting lines and first string, second string, how much you play each of them.
Right.
What do you think you're most excited to see when it comes to the quarterback battle specifically in the preseason game?
Well, I think we're going to learn pretty soon officially who's actually starting the game. And my guess will be in the second game it'll be the opposite, right? They should both get at least one start. How long will they be allowed to go? Because if you say you start Baker Mayfield and he's with the first team line, when you take out the first team line, do you also take out Baker, or does he play behind the second line? I'm not sure how much that really matters this year, because we do have some pretty experienced reserves, and we don't have the one guy like last year with Tom Brady. If you take out the line, you want to take out Tom Brady too, right? We don't have the one guy that's your number one guy yet. So we'll see how long they go. And like I said earlier, the avoidance of turnovers has been such a focal point coming straight from the top on the coaching staff out here in the practice field. And so how well can they do that in the games? Because that, they're going to be scrutinizing every snap of every game in making this decision. And you just don't want to have that on tape of throwing interceptions.
All right, well, that is going to do it for us on this edition of Training Camp Report presented by Ticketmaster. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will be back here tomorrow morning for another practice and another show. And again, that will be our final one before the preseason game on Friday. We'll be back with a couple more next week before the team heads to joint practices, but we'll see you tomorrow morning.